Okay, so remember this because it's going to come up in the Torah portion when we go through Korah. Okay. I will throw her onto a sickbed, those who commit adultery with her, and throw into great tribulation unless they repent of her works. I will strike her children dead, and all the churches will know that I am he who searches the mind and heart, and I will give each of you according to your works. So do your works matter? Looks like they do. But the rest of you in Thyatira who do not hold to this teaching, who have not learned what some call the deep things of Satan, I say to you, I do not lay on you any other burden. Okay, so the deep things of Satan. That's where this comes in, okay? This book. Breaking Religious Ties by Han Borman, okay? That is the book that you can go, and that will tell you all the Catholic they do different rituals throughout, and it depends on the Catholic Church and where you are. Sometimes in Europe they have different things, sometimes in different countries they have different things, but for the most part they do these different rituals and stuff. And what people don't realize is these rituals and these oaths that you are swearing and these things that you are agreeing to when you do these rituals are causing you to have spiritual bondage. Okay, Mormonism does this, Catholicism does this. Islam is connected to all this. Look up Walter Veith, the Islamic connection. Islam is connected to this. It is all, and high-level Orthodox Judaism likely is connected to this. I've had a hard time connecting those two, but likely if they're doing all this extra stuff, probably connected to this as well. So it's one big beast church system, right? Beast religious system, right? And so you want to break off those bondages, and you do that with prayer. And the Masons also do this. I do have a list of the Mason prayers. If you need those, you can email me and I will send you a document where you can go through. If you have Masons in your bloodline, or you have a lot of Catholicism in your bloodline, you should go through and renounce a lot of that stuff. And you will find, so I'll tell you a story. I had this lady come to me with her husband, and they had booked a prayer call on my website. And so we got on the phone, and she had had a stroke, and she was slurring her words. She couldn't speak properly. She had a stutter, and all sorts of health problems from this stroke. And so we started talking, and right away Abba said, just pray for her right away. Usually I talk to people for a while before I pray for them, but with her, he just said, pray right away. Okay. So I prayed for her right away. And I broke off just the stuff that he was showing me that I could see. And after we prayed together, we started chatting, and she didn't have her slur anymore. She didn't have her stutter anymore. So she was instantly healed of the stutter just by going through some prayer. Okay. Then she was going to take the Mason list, and I was going to go through with them and do all the Mason renunciation prayers with them. So I had sent them the list, and we were going to get together and pray together later. But then her and her husband just decided to go ahead and do it. They were just led by the Spirit to go ahead and do the Mason renunciation prayers. And so they went ahead and did that. And after they had prayed those Mason renunciation prayers, she was completely healed. Completely, everything reversed from her stroke, completely healed. Okay. So a lot of people say, well, it's the blood of Yeshua. You just claim the blood. Sometimes you have to be really legalistic about it. Okay. It is a legal process. If you've sworn an oath, you've made a contract. Okay. So you have to go in and specifically deal with each contract that you've made. Sometimes things just leave, but sometimes you have to deal very specifically. It really just depends. And you have to ask Yah to lead you to that information. Okay. If you feel that something might be operating in your life, like coming against you all the time, and if you feel that that's a thing, likely it is, right? Likely, if you have that sense, then likely it is a thing, okay? So pray about it, ask Abba to show you, ask him to lead. What I find the best thing to do is ask him to lead you to the information that you need. I find if I pray about something and pray about a situation, he will lead me to specific information that I need, okay? Within a few days, usually. Okay, what else? What else are we going to talk about today? We're going to go into Korah. Let's go into that today. What's really fascinating, and I find this happens every year at this time, because we do these Torah portions in a cycle. Every year at this time, there will be different groups rising up in rebellion. And in the last 2 weeks, some of you are aware of this, that we've had different groups stirring up the camp, trying to get people to come to their tabernacle in the camp, and like speaking against Yeshua, speaking against the word and all this stuff. And it's so fascinating to me that they don't realize, like, they're doing this and they're literally prophetically fulfilling the fact that we are reading the book of Korah. We're reading the Torah portion of Korah this week. And it happens every single year. And I'm deeply fascinated by it, because, and this is why we do this every week. This is why we sit here and we go through every week, because y'all need to know that this is a thing, that these cycles repeat. And if you stay and you just study the Torah and you study the word, you can see through the, for lack of a better word, BS. You can see through the BS that people are bringing. If you do not study the word line by line, week after week, and have a really solid understanding, you are very susceptible to be led over here, led over there, and be susceptible to the BS, okay? So Korah is all about this group in the congregation that decided that they are very important and that they should be able to just touch all the holy objects without the intercessor, without going through the proper channels, and they're speaking against Moshe, right? We had a few weeks ago, we had talked about when Miriam and Aaron started speaking against Moshe, what happened to Miriam. And then now we're seeing the next depiction of it, where Korah starts to build up this rebellion against Moshe and speaking against Moshe. Because what Korah wanted was to be very important, and touch the holy things and do the sacrifices. Even though he was able to be a part of the process, he wasn't the one actually doing the sacrifices. So they wanted to have a higher standing, but they weren't looking at it in with a heart of service. They're looking at it as a heart of, we're just as important as you, right? So instead of showing that humility and just serving where Abba has asked you to serve, they've decided to go above and beyond and try to be more important. So let's get into it. Let's pray first. Let me remove this. Okay, if anybody needs, this is the book. It's Han Borman, Breaking Religious Ties. Grab it. Grab it and get it. It is excellent if you have been a part of Catholicism at all. There we go. Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you. We just want to glorify your name. Thank you for bringing us together to glorify you and glorify your word, to glorify your revelations, and your prophecies. Father, just thank you for bringing us all together. And thank you for giving us the energy and resources we need to be here in peace and at rest with you. I pray, Father, that you will just protect us during this time. I pray that you will remove anyone from this broadcast that is cursing us in their hearts and minds, anyone who has a prideful spirit that just wants to come against your word, anyone that has a prideful spirit that doesn't want to listen and hear the matter before making a judgment, anyone who wants to rise up and lash with their tongue. I pray, Father, that you will just gently remove them from this broadcast and rebuke them from being here. We just pray that your peace surrounds us in this time. I want to pray for my friend who was in the car accident. Father, just protect him today. I just want to pray that you walk with him carefully and surround him today with your protection, your guidance, and just calm his nerves. I want to pray, Father, for Mary and Ray. I want to lift up Mary and Ray to you and their farm. And I just pray, Father, that your blessing on their entire family, every single child, every single grandchild. I pray an abundant blessing upon them. Heavenly Father, I just pray for all of our relatives and friends that don't know you. I pray that they're drawn to you in a in a deep way. I pray that they just see the light that we are shining to them, and they're just drawn to that light, Father. Heal them, heal their land. I pray, Father, that you just guide them into perfect understanding of you, as you're guiding us all into perfect understanding of you. Anoint us for battle. Prepare us for the battles ahead. Keep us steadfast. Keep us focused on the correct things. Help us to not be distracted by rebellions, to not be distracted by debates and arguing that don't need to be had. Help us to keep our pride in check. Remove all pride and ego from us, Father. I pray, Father, that you will just bless us with your abundant spirit, that we will always know where to go and when to go. I pray, Father, for our children. I pray that you will bless them to know you always. I pray that they will never veer to the right or to the left, but seek fully after you, and they will understand the things of the Spirit long before many of us understood the things of the Spirit. And I pray, Father, that you will anoint them each with a deep knowing of you and why your ways are right and true, and why you love us so much, that you give us your statutes and your commandments to protect us and guide us, and to help us know how your kingdom works. Heavenly Father, relieve us of all evil inclinations, and help us to be healed of all infirmities. I pray for anyone who has any infirmities or inflammations, that inflammation will leave their body now. I pray healing over all the people. I pray healing for IBS. I pray healing for gut issues. I pray for healing for anxiety and depression. I pray for healing for Alzheimer's. I pray for clear minds, no dementia. I pray, Father, that you will clear our heads, our hearts, and our minds, that we may only hear from you. May your Holy Spirit, your Ruach, your living water from Yeshua wash through us and wash us clean, Father, that we may be healthy and stand before you in our healthiest state. Guide my words today, guide my thoughts and intentions always, in Yeshua's name, amen. Okay, dokie. Again, the Zoom call is on if you want to go to the Zoom call. Just make sure you please mute your mics. And the link is in the bio if you want Zoom call. Okay, Korach, we're going to start with Numbers 16.
Now Korah, the son of Izhar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with a number of the people of Israel, 250 chiefs of the congregation, chosen from the assembly, well-known men. They assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all in the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" When Moses heard it, he fell on his face, and he said to Korah and all his company, "In the morning the Lord will show who is his and who is holy, and will bring him near to him. The one whom he chooses, he will bring near to him. Do this: take censers, Korah and all his company, put fire in them, and put incense on them before the Lord tomorrow. The man whom the Lord chooses shall be the Holy One. You have gone too far, sons of Levi." And Moses said to Korah, "Hear now, you sons of Levi. Is it too small a thing for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel, to bring you near to himself, to do service in the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister to them, and that he has brought you near him, and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you? And would you seek the priesthood also? Therefore it is against the Lord that you and all your company have gathered together. What is Aaron that you grumble against him?" And Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and they said, "We will not come up. Is it a small thing that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you must also make yourself a prince over us? Moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up." And Moses was very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not respect their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, and I have not harmed one of them." And Moses said to Korah, Be present, you and all your company, before the Lord, you and they and Aaron, tomorrow. And let every one of you take his censer and put incense on it, and every one of you bring before the Lord his censer, 250 censers, you also and Aaron, each his censer. So every man took his censer and put fire in them and laid incense on them and stood at the entrance of the tent of meeting with Moses and Aaron. Then Korah assembled all the congregation against them at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the congregation.
Okay, censer. So that is where you would do the incense offering, which is interesting because it's a representation of prayer. And I'm just seeing if we can see some images of it. So there's the Catholic version, which if you Google the Catholic version will mostly come up. So the Catholics do this a lot, which I find fascinating because Jehovah is very specific about the incense that is offered to him, right? And now, like, we'll think of it as a literal sense at first. So when he gives you the recipe for the incense that you're going to bring before him, he's very, very specific. Now, a few chapters before this, he killed Aaron's sons because they brought unauthorized fire, okay, before him, right? So it's quite bold for the Catholic Church to be bringing all this incense before them, before him, unauthorized fire, right? Now, so if we look at incense as like the prayers, so the prayers of the saints are like incense going up. And we look at Proverbs 3:31, I think it is. Is it? Sorry, 28:9. One who turns away his ear from hearing the Torah, the law, even his prayer is an abomination. And so that is the understanding that if Jehovah has given us instruction on a matter, but we rebel against that, we turn our ear away from hearing that, we refuse to hear the correction that's already existing in his Torah, in his word, our prayer becomes an abomination. Because think about it, if you're praying for health, let's say you're praying for health, you have cancer, you're praying for health, but you're refusing to eat clean, you're refusing to remove all the stuff from your food that you should not be eating, you're refusing to rest, right, on his Sabbath day, you're doing all these things, and then you're praying for him, oh, heal me, heal me, heal me, right? You're not doing the things he already gave you that would heal you, right? In Deuteronomy 28, it talks about specifically, if you keep my commandments, it will heal you. You will be healed. You will prosper, right? So if you are, another example, you want money or you need money, you're constantly broke, you're constantly poor, all of these things. There could be a possibility that you are not obeying his commandments in regards to money. And because you're not obeying his commandments in regards to money, he cannot bless you, he cannot prosper you, right? And so if you're sitting there praying for money, but you're doing all these things that are against his commandments, he cannot hear your prayer. Your prayer has become an abomination. So that is the very simple way of understanding it. They're bringing these censers of incense to, there's one verse here I want to look at. So these were chiefs of the congregation. These were men that were leaders of the congregation that were rising up against Moses. And they're doing this, I believe, right before this in Numbers 15. They're talking about, Let's just see what they were doing right before this. Numbers 15. It goes through some specifics about the Sabbath day. And then Numbers 15:31, it speaks to the people of Israel, tell them to make tassels on the corner of their garments throughout their generations and put a cord of blue on the tassel of each corner. It shall be a tassel for you to look at and remember all the commandments of Jehovah, to do them, not to follow after your own heart and your own eyes, which you are inclined to whore after. So you shall remember and do all my commandments and be holy to Jehovah your Elohim. I am Jehovah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. I am Jehovah your Elohim. So right before Korah starts to rebel, they're going through the specifics. This is the specific way that you are going to approach me. This is the specific way that you're going to behave. Do not follow after your own heart and your eyes, because you're inclined to whore after things when you do that. And then right immediately after this, Korah's like, who is this guy that thinks that he can tell us all these things and boss us around, right? So there is a verse here. Let me just find it. Actually, I think I wrote it down. I believe I wrote it down. (1624). If you look at the Hebrew of 1624, there is a picture that Korah might have been building his own tabernacle. So Korach and his company are saying, we're not going to go up to the tabernacle. We're not going to go up to Jerusalem. We're not going to do things in the proper order. We're going to build our own thing. Okay. And if you look at Numbers 16:24 in the Hebrew, say to the congregation, get away from the dwelling, mishkan. It's not a house, it's a mishkan, it's a tabernacle. It's like a picture of an altar or a tabernacle. So there is a possibility, we have no way of knowing this for sure, there is a possibility that Korah and Dathan and Abiram were building altars, because they're saying, we're not going to go up to your altar, we're going to do it ourselves, we're going to do it our way. And that's exactly what I was talking about with the whole Rome thing, how Rome, they're not going to go up to the altar that Jehovah gave us. They're not going to use the images and the pattern that Jehovah gave us. They're going to make their own. We're going to do it our own way. We're going to come before him our own way. We're going to bring him our own incense, even though he gave us a specific recipe for incense and a specific way to bring it before him and a specific way that our prayers are not an abomination. We're going to do it our own way. We're going to get rid of these things. We're going to change these things and we're going to do it our own way. Okay. So the Mishkan of Korah, the tabernacle, it's a picture of him making his own tabernacle. Okay, I'm not sure where we were.
And the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. And they fell on their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and will you be angry with all the congregation? And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, say to the congregation, get away from the dwelling of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Then Moses rose and went to Dathan and Abiram and the...
I just want to point out, okay, so that goes back to Revelation 2 when we covered the church of Thyatira. So what does Jehovah say to the people who are dwelling with the church of Thyatira? Get away from them, get out of her, my people, right? So that you will not be consumed by the plagues, the tribulation that's going to come upon the church of Thyatira, okay? So get away from the dwellings of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. It's the same picture.
Elders of Israel followed him, and he spoke to the congregation, saying, depart, please, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest you be swept away with all their sins. So they got away from the dwelling of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the door of their tents, together with their wives, their sons, and their little ones. And Moses said, Hereby you shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all these works, and that it has not been of my own accord. If these men die as all men die, or if they are visited by the fate of all mankind, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord creates something new, and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into Sheol, then you shall know that these men have despised the Lord. And as soon as he had finished speaking all these words, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up, with their households and all the people who belonged to Korah and all their goods. So they and all that belonged to them went down alive into Sheol, and the earth closed over them, and they perished from the midst of the assembly. And all Israel who were around them fled at their cry, for they said, Lest the earth swallow us up. And fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men offering the incense. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Tell Eleazar the son of Aaron the priest to take up the censers out of the blaze. Then scatter the fire far and wide, for they have become holy. As for the censers of these men who have sinned at the cost of their lives, let them be made into hammered plates as a covering for the altar. For they offered them before the Lord, and they became holy. Thus they shall be assigned to the people of Israel. So Eleazar the priest took the bronze censers which those who were burned had offered, and they were hammered out as a covering for the altar, to be a reminder to the people of Israel, so that no outsider who is not of the descendants of Aaron should draw near to burn incense before the Lord, lest he become like Korah and his company, as the Lord said to him through Moses.
I just find it so fascinating because, in the New Age too, they're always like waving different strange fires around, right? Just haphazardly. Such an interesting picture. It's like, we're going to wave all this strange fire. We're going to do all these things, but we won't keep the commandments of Yah, right? We want to be delivered. We want all these things, but we can't possibly just keep his commandments. It's such an interesting picture, a way of thinking. So there, the earth opens up and swallows them up into Sheol, which is the resting place where all people would go. And so it's understood that that's kind of like a place where people rest until the resurrection. I believe that it's talked about in the New Testament. I think we'll go over that today as well. So there's two kind of pictures, and you can debate about what it actually is. I don't know that anyone really understands it fully. They all talk very confidently about it, but I tend not to talk confidently about things that there's a lot of nuance to. There's a picture of Sheol being Gehenna, which was the garbage dump outside of Jerusalem, and that Gehenna would always be burning with garbage and bodies and whatever, and it was a place where they had sacrificed children and all this stuff. And when you hear, like, you go there and that's where the worm doesn't die, your conscience never dies if you go to Gehenna, so you're always in like perpetual fire. There's that picture, and then there's the picture of Sheol as a resting place under the earth until the resurrection. But then I believe it's in the New Testament, Yeshua is talking about Lazarus, who, let me look it up. Let's just. Who was it? Oh, I forget where this even is. Does anybody know? It's where one of the brothers goes to Sheol and then one doesn't. He says, I have to come out and warn. I don't even know what to Google with this. Lazarus, okay. Rich man and Lazarus. Okay, yeah, okay, so Luke 16. Let's just read it. Luke 16, 19 to 31. One who is faithful with very little is also faithful in much. One who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. Then, if you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust you with true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another, who will give you that which is in your own? No servant can serve two masters, for he either will hate the one or love the other. He will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Mammon. The Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard these things and they ridiculed him. And he said to them, you are those who justify yourselves before men, but Yah knows your hearts. For what is exalted among men is an abomination in the sight of Yah. The law and the prophets were until John, and then the good news of the kingdom of Yah is preached, but everyone forces his way into it. But it will be easier for heaven and earth to pass than for one dot or of the law to become void. Everyone who divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery, and he who marries a woman divorced from her husband commits adultery. Then we go on to the parable. There was a rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen, who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate was laid a poor man named Lazarus, covered in sores, who desired to be fed that which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, even the dogs came and licked his sores. The poor man died and was carried away by the angels to Abraham's bosom. So Abraham's, yeah, that's what it is. There's the Sheol place and then there's Abraham's bosom. And both are places where you wait the resurrection. So the poor man died and was carried to Abraham's bosom. And the rich man, who also died, was buried, and in Hades, invisible abode, mansion of the dead, place of punishment. Place of punishment, held the lowest place or condition that you can be in. Hades. That's what it means in Greek. The place or state of departed souls, grave, or hell, properly unseen. Being in torment. So what is torment? Torment. The notion of going to the bottom. The notion of going to the bottom. Torture, torment. He lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham far off and Lazarus at his side. And he called out, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus to dip the end of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in anguish of this flame. But Abraham said, Child, remember that you in your lifetime received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner bad things. And now he is comforted here, and you are in anguish. And besides all this, between us and you, a great chasm has been fixed, in order that those who would pass from here to there, you may not be able, and none may cross from there to us. And he said, I beg you, Father, send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, so that they may warn him, lest they can come into this place of torment. But Abraham said, they have Moses and the prophets, let them hear. And he said, No, Father Abraham, but if someone goes to them from the dead, they will repent. And he told them, if they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced if someone should rise from the dead. So, actually interesting connection to the Korah story, because Korah is refusing to hear Moses. Now, notice in the church of Thyatira, like as I was pointing out before, in the church of Thyatira, the children of Korah go with him. The wives and the children go with him. I have this friend who was talking about how her husband was saying that he will take it all on. Like if he's wrong in his theology, he'll take it all on himself, etc., etc. But you become yoked in one flesh. So it's very uncomfortable for a woman, obviously, and the children, if the husband is not equally yoked and walking in righteousness, because just as what happened with Korah, the children go with, right? And so when we look at the church of Thyatira, we see as well the children being taken as well. That's Revelation 2. If you missed it earlier, we discussed it. So Revelation 2, or is it Pergamum? Is it Pergamum? Sorry. No, it's not Pergamum. Yeah, Thyatira. I will throw, behold, I will throw her into a sick bed. So that's the great harlot church. Okay. Any of those who are refusing to come and do Yah's works, but instead want to do the harlot's works, they're going to get thrown into tribulation and a sick bed, right? They commit adultery with the harlot. So if you are following the harlot and you are lusting after what the harlot is up to, and the works of the harlot, you are in danger of getting thrown into great tribulation because you are doing her works instead of doing Yah's works. And I will strike her children dead. And all the churches will know that I am he who searches the heart and the mind, and I will give each of you according to your works. Okay, and now I want to go to Revelation 17. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet. So Revelation 17:4, the woman was arrayed. So the great harlot was arrayed in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. If you just Google purple and scarlet robes and a golden cup and just do the obvious mental deduction, you will figure this out. Who is the great harlot? It's Rome, and everyone connected to Rome. They're all interconnected. They're all in bed together, right? That's why you have the sexual immorality. They're all in bed together. You know what I'm saying? In the sense of they're all in covenant together. They're all working together. The Masons, the harlots, the Masons, the Romans, the Mormons, all the people, the builders who truly reject the cornerstone, right? That truly reject the true altar, the true word, right? They're making up their own works. On her forehead is written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of the earth's abominations. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Yeshua. Now we have to go to Revelation 18. And I just want to show you where Revelation 18:4. Then I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues. For her sins are heaped high as heaven, and Yah has remembered her iniquities, perverse thinking. Pay her back as she has paid back others. Repay her double for her deeds. Mix a double portion for her in the cup she has mixed. And she glorified herself, lived in luxury, and so like a measure of torment. So give her like a measure of give her a like measure of torment and mourning. And since in her heart she says, I sit as queen, I am no widow, and mourning I shall never see. For this reason, her plagues shall come in a single day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be burnt with fire. For mighty is Jehovah Elohim who has judged her. So she gets judged, and I just want to see where. Does talk about the children again here too. So you can see the mirror images. Might have been at the beginning. Or maybe it was still in 17. It talks about the children going onto the sick bed. Oh, Revelation. No, that's not the right one. We already did that one. There's another one. It's in there somewhere. I can't remember where. That's okay. You guys know what I'm talking about. So you can see all the parallels. Come out of her, my people. Come away from her tabernacle. So we have the tabernacles of Korah, and those who stay in the tabernacles of Korah, they get consumed by the fire. This is very wheat and tares picture. They're going to get consumed by the fire. 250 of them get burnt up. And so there's this whole thing that he goes through here, and they were holding the censers, right? The censers didn't get consumed because the censers are made of metal. But the people got consumed and they became holy. So how did they become holy? Well, they were completely cleansed by fire. They were completely consumed by fire and thus made holy. Now we're told that we can walk through fire and not get burnt, right? When you have Daniel, in the book of Daniel, when you have the three men go into the fiery furnace, they're able to be in the fiery furnace and not get burnt. Why? Because they did not bow to idols. They are already righteous because they refuse to bow to idols, and they refuse to be, what's the word? They refuse to be in compromise. So the picture we have here is they're being completely consumed by the fire, and that's making them holy, being completely consumed. And then we have the same picture in the church of Laodicea, where Yeshua says that you should buy from him gold refined by fire, so that you're refined before the fires get here. You do not want to be not refined when the fire comes. You want to be always being refined ahead of time. So I think we're at verse 41.
But on the next day, all the congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and against Aaron, saying, "You have killed the people of the Lord." And when the congregation had assembled against Moses and against Aaron, they turned toward the tent of meeting. And behold, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. And Moses and Aaron came to the front of the tent of meeting, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Get away from the midst of this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." And they fell on their faces. And Moses said to Aaron, "Take your censer and put fire on it from off the altar, and lay incense on it, and carry it quickly to the congregation, and make atonement for them. For wrath has gone out from the Lord, the plague is begun." So Aaron took it as Moses said, and ran into the midst of the assembly. And behold, the plague had already begun among the people. And he put on the incense, and made atonement for the people. And he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stopped. Now those who died in the plague were 14,700, besides those who died in the affair of Korah. And Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tent of meeting when the plague was stopped.
So we have a picture here of the intercession again. So Aaron being the high priest, and Moshe having that relationship with Yah, they were able to intercede for the people and make atonement for the people. What's atonement? Paying the price. They paid the price for the people's sins and atoned for them, stood in the gap for them so that they would not be consumed. This is a picture that happens throughout the scriptures. So that's what Yeshua does for us. He stands in the gap for us so that when Yehovah looks down, he doesn't see us and how gone astray we tend to get. He sees Yeshua. And he says, okay, Yeshua's got them covered, like a husband would cover a wife, right? So just like Korah and his wife and children were consumed because Korah was their covering, you got to be real careful who you marry. Korah was your covering, right? They were consumed. But Yeshua is our covering. So Yeshua is our covering above us. And so when Yehovah looks down, he stands in the gap for us so that that he doesn't see our sin. He doesn't see our unrighteousness. He sees Yeshua. But we can get spit out from that covering. When we look at the church of Laodicea, you see that picture. They were undercover, but then they get spit out from under the cover. If you choose to go out from the covering of your husband and play the harlot, what happens? He can give you a certificate of divorce. That's why you have the 10 maidens, right? In the parable of the maidens, you have 10 maidens. 5 were there with their lamps full of oil, ready to be married. 5 were doing other things. They never prepared. They never got ready. They were being disloyal to their husband. They were being disloyal to their betrothed one, and they were not ready at the appropriate hour. So that when the husband came to collect his bride, only half were ready. 5 were ready. So you can see these pictures go on and on and on. When a husband finds, so there's the verses in the command. So if a husband finds that his wife has gone astray, and he is suspicious of that, he removes her covering. So the first thing that the adulterous bride does, so the adulterous bride goes into the temple to meet with the priest, the tabernacle to meet with the priest. What's the first thing she does? Uncovers her head. Why do the women wear the head covering? To symbolize that they have a covering. Yeah. So the first thing she does is removes her covering to go into the adulterous bride test. Now, if Yeshua suspects you of being an adulterous bride, lusting after the things of Rome or the great harlot or whatever, he's going to first remove your covering before he tests you to see if you have been an adulterous bride. See these pictures? There's the little pictures of the things that they were doing as a people, but there's a grander picture of all of us as Yeshua's bride, right? Now we're going to go into Aaron's staff.
The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel, and get from them staffs, one for each father's house, from all their chiefs according to their father's houses, 12 staffs. Write each man's name on his staff, and write Aaron's name on the staff of Levi. For there shall be one staff for the head of each father's house. Then you shall deposit them in the tent of meeting before the testimony, where I meet with you. And the staff of the man whom I choose shall sprout. Thus I will make to cease from me the grumblings of the people of Israel, which they grumble against you." Moses spoke to the people of Israel, and all their chiefs gave him staffs, one for each chief, according to their fathers' houses, 12 staffs. And the staff of Aaron was among their staffs. And Moses deposited the staffs before the Lord in the tent of the testimony. On the next day Moses went into the tent of the testimony, and behold, the staff of Aaron for the house of Levi had sprouted and put forth buds and produced blossoms, and it bore ripe almonds. Then Moses brought out all the staffs from before the Lord to all the people of Israel. And they looked, and each man took his staff. And the Lord said to Moses, "Put back the staff of Aaron before the testimony, to be kept as a sign for the rebels, that you may make an end of their grumblings against me, lest they die." Thus did Moses, as the Lord commanded him, so he did. And the people of Israel said to Moses, "Behold, we perish, we are undone, we are all undone. Everyone who comes near to the tabernacle of the Lord shall die. Are we all to perish?" So the Lord said to Aaron, "You and your sons and your father's house with you shall bear iniquity connected with the sanctuary, and you and your sons with you shall bear iniquity connected with your priesthood. And with you bring your brothers also, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your father, that they may join you and minister to you while you and your sons with you are before the tent of the testimony. They shall keep guard over you and over the whole tent, but shall not come near to the vessels of the sanctuary or to the altar, lest they and you die. They shall join you and keep guard over the tent of meeting for all the service of the tent, and no outsider shall come near you. And you shall keep guard over the sanctuary and over the altar, that there may never again be wrath on the people of Israel. And behold, I have taken your brothers, the Levites, from among the people of Israel. They are a gift to you given to the Lord, to do the service of the tent of meeting. And you and your sons with you shall guard your priesthood for all that concerns the altar, and that is within the veil, and you shall serve. I give your priesthood as a gift, and any outsider who comes near shall be put to death." Then the Lord spoke to Aaron, "Behold, I have given you charge of the contributions made to me, all the consecrated things of the people of Israel. I have given them to you as a portion and to your sons as a perpetual due. This shall be yours of the most holy things, reserved from the fire. Every offering of theirs, every grain offering of theirs, and every sin offering of theirs, and every guilt offering of theirs, which they render to me, shall be most holy to you and to your sons. In a most holy place shall you eat it. Every male may eat it. It is holy to you. This also is yours, the contribution of their gift, all the wave offerings of the people of Israel. I have given them to you and to your sons and daughters with you as a perpetual due. Everyone who is clean in your house may eat it. All the best of the oil and all the best of the wine and of the grain, the first fruits of what they give to the Lord, I give to you. The first ripe fruits of all that is in their land, which they bring to the Lord, shall be yours. Everyone who is clean in your house may eat it. Every devoted thing in Israel shall be yours. Everything that opens the womb of all flesh, whether man or beast, which they offer to the Lord, shall be yours. Nevertheless, the firstborn of man you shall redeem, and the firstborn of unclean animals you shall redeem. And their redemption price, at a month old you shall redeem them. You shall fix at 5 shekels in silver, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, which is 20 gerahs. But the firstborn of a cow, or the firstborn of a sheep, or the firstborn of a goat, you shall not redeem. They are holy. You shall sprinkle their blood on the altar and shall burn their fat as a food offering, with a pleasing aroma to the Lord. But their flesh shall be yours, as the breast that is waved, and as the right thigh are yours. All the holy contributions that the people of Israel present to the Lord I give to you and to your sons and daughters with you, as a perpetual due. It is a covenant of salt forever before the Lord for you and for your offspring with you. And the Lord said to Aaron, You shall have no inheritance in their land, neither shall you have any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the people of Israel.
Okay, I want to stop there and just cover a couple things. One thing I wanted to look up is bearing iniquity. The picture is that Aaron and the priests and the Levites, they had a higher standard of life. They had a higher standard in how they were to be, because they were the intercessors for the people. So the people were coming to them with their guilt offerings, with their sin offerings, and they were the intercessors of the people. There was this whole debate about Yeshua. Can Yeshua die for us and be an intercessor for us? That is the picture throughout scripture, is that Abraham was an intercessor. So what did Abraham do? Abraham interceded for Lot and everyone, and he interceded for any righteous that were in Sodom and Gomorrah, and then they were called out. He was able to stand in the gap for them. Then you have the picture of Moses intercessing for the people over and over and over again, and Joshua over and over again. That is the picture that keeps propelling forward until we get to Yeshua, who is our intercessor now. So is there a picture of a priesthood bearing iniquity on behalf of the people? Yes, it says right here, you and your sons and your father's house with you shall bear iniquity, connected with the sanctuary, and you and your son shall bear iniquity connected with your priesthood. So they are bearing the iniquity. What is bearing iniquity? Let's look it up. Leviticus 18. Oh, sorry, not Leviticus 18, Numbers 18. Bear, nasa, lift and carry, iniquity, transgression, guilt, punishment. Nasa, lift and carry, transgression, guilt, and punishment. So in this time, the sons of Aaron were bearing, lifting up the transgression, guilt, and punishment off of the people. Let's go to, and that's that picture of when they take the censer through to make atonement for the people. They're paying the price. They're making atonement so that they're taking the wrath away off of the people. The next thing that I wanted to look at, so the Levites were not given land. So in that day, everyone would have land to work, and they would work the land, and then that's how they would pay for things. That's how they would eat. The Levites, because they were always working in the service of the tabernacle, they were not given land for an inheritance. So they were given a tithe from the people in return for the service that they do, for their service in the tent of meeting, the tabernacle. Because of that burden that they had, the people were to bring them the tithe of the best. So the first and the best of what the people were getting was going to the Levites, because they were in service of the tabernacle. I think that's all I wanted to. I want to cover the covenant of salt, actually. So in verse 19, it is a covenant of salt forever before Jehovah. So there's these covenants that are forever, and this covenant of salt is one of them. You hear about it with David as well in the future, but let's just read the covenant of salt. It is Leviticus 2:13. So here's the first time it's mentioned. No grain offering, we're starting at 2:11. No grain offering that you bring to Jehovah shall be made with leaven, for you shall burn no leaven or any honey as a food offering to Jehovah. So that's really interesting, because you need, for leaven to work, you need sugar, because leaven cannot work without sugar. So no leaven or honey as any food offering to Jehovah. And in those days, they would use sourdough. So they're bringing them grain without leaven. As an offering of first fruits, you may bring them to Jehovah, but they will not be offered on the altar for pleasing aroma. You shall season all your grain offerings with salt. Salt is used in purifying and seasoning food. It's often used in purifying waters. It's strewn on the site of a devoted city. It's produced in marshes reserved for the purposes. So salt, I did a few videos on salt too, like the different properties of salt. Salt was used to preserve as well. It was a preservative. You shall season all your grain offerings with salt. You shall not let the salt of the covenant with Jehovah be missing from your grain offerings. With all your offerings, you shall offer salt. Very interesting, very fascinating. What's the root word of salt? It is malah, root of malah, worn out rags, to vanish, to be disappeared. A verb, to be vanished, to be disappeared, or worn out rags. That's interesting, because it's almost like, okay, so saying don't offer the leaven, thinking that your works are special and important. Don't offer the leaven, but bring just the grain with the salt. And the root of salt means worn out rags. It's almost like your works are, it's like that understanding of like your works are filthy rags. Like you don't offer what you do. You don't offer your works. You offer his works back to him. So what is offering his works back to him? Being obedient to the commandments. Just being obedient and trying to learn who he is. That is offering his works back to him, right? Just being obedient. I had a vision once. I'm sure I've told some of you about this. But I was praying and thinking about the Sabbath and praying, and Abba showed me this image of when we're just obedient with a pure heart and we just trust him. We just trust him, like, okay, you've said to bring salt, we bring salt, or you've said to keep the Sabbath day set apart and holy, we'll just do that because you said so. It is like a pleasing aroma rising up to him. It is like us blessing him back. That obedience and that trust in him, and just trusting that he's our heavenly father, he knows what's best, and just doing that in obedience is a pleasing aroma to him. It's like our spirit rises up and blesses him. And that's really the picture of everything that we've been talking about today. So he's saying, don't bring the leaven, don't puff it up, don't make it about you, don't make it about your works, but instead have that salt, have that understanding that your works are filthy rags, right? What is it? Malah, worn out rags. So your works are worn out rags, but our offerings should be his works, right? That's what our offering should be. What are his works? What are his things that he wants us to learn? Because then you're learning his image. You're not learning Rome's image. You're not learning the harlot's image. You're learning his image. You don't want to learn the false image, right? It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations among the people of Israel that they shall have no inheritance. So the Levites will never have any inheritance. For the tithe of the people of Israel, they present as a contribution to Jehovah. It is given to the Levites for an inheritance. Therefore, I have said to them, you shall have no inheritance among the people of Israel. I think we are at verse 25.
To the Levites I have given every tithe in Israel for an inheritance, in return for their service that they do, their service in the tent of meeting, so that the people of Israel do not come near the tent of meeting, lest they bear sin and die. But the Levites shall do the service of the tent of meeting, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations, and among the people of Israel they shall have no inheritance. For the tithe of the people of Israel, which they present as a contribution to the Lord, I have given to the Levites for an inheritance. Therefore I have said of them, that they shall have no inheritance among the people of Israel. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Moreover you shall speak and say to the Levites, when you take from the people of Israel the tithe that I have given you from them for your inheritance, then you shall present a contribution from it to the Lord, a tithe of the tithe. And your contribution shall be counted to you as though it were the grain of the threshing floor, and as the fullness of the winepress. So you shall also present a contribution to the Lord from all your tithes, which you receive from the people of Israel. And from it you shall give the Lord's contribution to Aaron the priest. Out of all the gifts to you, you shall present every contribution due to the Lord. From each its best part is to be dedicated. Therefore you shall say to them, when you have offered from it the best of it, then the rest shall be counted to the Levites as produce of the threshing floor, and as produce of the winepress. And you may eat it in any place, you and your households, for it is your reward in return for your service in the tent of meeting. And you shall bear no sin by reason of it, when you have contributed the best of it. But you shall not profane the holy things of the people of Israel, lest you die.
There was a lot of talk in this section too about holy food and how the priesthood, and if the priesthood and their family were clean, they could eat of the sacrifices and they could eat of the holy food. This is where we start to get in Orthodox Judaism, you start to get these types of priesthood commands. They were bringing them out to the people. And so when you have what Yeshua was talking about, the washing of the hands before eating bread, this was a picture of sanctifying their hands before they eat bread in order to make the bread holy, to make it clean. And so there was all of these rituals that were starting to leave later on, that were starting to leave from the priesthood circle and out into the regular people as ways of trying to make yourself more holy and more righteous and more clean. And that's what Yeshua was speaking out against a lot of times. And so when you have this conversation in the New Testament where they're talking about eating food with Gentiles, sitting at tables with Gentiles, Peter's vision about, Gentiles can come into the kingdom and stuff like that. A lot of the context of this conversation about making foods clean is about these extra Orthodox commandments. They had not been written down yet, but these traditions had been started. We know this because we can see the tradition started when Yeshua talks to the Pharisees about the hand washing. So we know that a lot of these ritualistic things were already being added in. You see this in the Catholic Church too. They do their little dip their hand in holy water and do the sign of the cross and stuff like that. Those are rituals that have nothing to do with scripture, but it's just like these extra commands to try to make people clean, right? Your works are filthy rags. So doing all these extra commands to try to be clean is really not doing anything. But what is making us clean? This understanding that Yeshua covers us, right? He cleanses us. So when you're looking and you're reading through like Galatians and Romans and Corinthians, and it's talking about all foods clean, we have to remember that's not changing what food is. Food is already covered. We know that this is food to eat and this is not food to eat. We've already covered that. So pork is not a food according to the Bible. Shrimp and shellfish is not a food according to the Bible. So when they're talking about all foods clean, they're talking about ritual purity, cleanliness, and they're also talking about being out in the marketplace. So if you go to India or wherever and you have to eat and you're not sure if this food has been offered to an idol, it's best not to ask, because if you ask and they say, yeah, we offered it to whatever idol before we make it in the morning, then all of a sudden your conscience, you're like, okay, I can't eat that. But if you go somewhere and you don't see any idols around and you just eat the food, you're good, okay? Yeshua is covering you. And or if you mistakenly eat some gelatin in something one day, and it doesn't mean that you're not saved. It means that you didn't know, you're covered. But it does not mean that we rebel and we come against Moses and we come against what Moshe said and say that pork is now food. It doesn't make pork food. It doesn't mean that you should sit there and eat a plate of bacon to test Jehovah, right? If he said it's not food for you, it's not food for you. It's really that simple. So I think a lot of the confusion in the Christian church comes from the fact that they don't know anything about Judaism. They know nothing about Judaism for the most part. So they don't understand that this food conversation is about kosher law. It's about, you got to wash your hands a certain way to eat bread. You got to say this certain prayer before you drink water. If a Gentile touches your wine glass, you can't drink that wine because a Gentile touched it. Now it's unclean. Most Christians don't know these things about Orthodox Judaism, and therefore they're very confused about Paul. And it's prideful, I think, it's really prideful to be reading Galatians and thinking that you have it figured out when you know nothing about the history and context of the people that are talking, right? So we have to really humble ourselves and ask ourselves, okay, if there's contradictions here, we see in Isaiah 66 that those who are eating pork are in trouble in the day of the Lord. But then we see Paul saying it's okay, and you're translating that to you can eat pork now, and you're not irritated by that contradiction, then there's a chance that there's something you're not understanding, or there's a chance you're being prideful and you're reading the scriptures to try to make them suit your flesh, right? To make them suit you rather than seeking what Abba's actually trying to show you. On that note, I want to jump to are we going to do that? No, I think we already did enough of that. So if you want Numbers 26, oh yeah, we should cover this. Numbers 26, let's go there. Numbers 26, 9, 11. This is the retelling of the same story. So often you'll see two witnesses of the same story and they'll retell the story and you'll get often more details. Okay. So verse 10, and the earth opened its mouth. Okay, so let's go. There was Dathan and Abram chosen from the congregation who contended against Moshe and Aaron in the company of Korah. And when they contended against Jehovah, so when they contended against Moshe, they were contending against Jehovah. So if they are contending against the one that Jehovah has put in place to lead the congregation, if you are doing that, you're contending against Jehovah. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up altogether with Korah when that company died, when the fire devoured 250 men, and they became a warning. But all the sons of Korah, but the sons, the Ben, the heritage, the line of Korah did not die. So when it says sons of Korah, it means the heritage and the line. So he still had lineage that survived. And that's why we see in Psalms, you will see about 11 Psalms that are written by the sons of Korah. And you might be confused, but I thought all the sons of Korah died. No, there was some that survived and they repented and they were allowed to stay, obviously, and continue being Levitical priests. And they ended up writing about 11 of the Psalms. And if you read through the Psalms, it'll say written by the sons of Korah. There's a bunch of them. Just wanted to cover that so you weren't confused in the future about it. All right, we're going to go through Isaiah 66. Isaiah 66, 1.
Thus says the Lord, heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What is the house that you would build for me, and what is the place of my rest? All these things my hand has made, and so all these things came to be, declares the Lord. But this is the one to whom I will look, he who is humble and contrite in spirit, and trembles at my word. He who slaughters an ox is like one who kills a man. He who sacrifices a lamb like one who breaks a dog's neck. He who presents a grain offering like one who offers pig's blood. He who makes a memorial offering of frankincense like one who blesses an idol. These have chosen their own ways, and their soul delights in their abominations. I also will choose harsh treatment for them and bring their fears upon them, because when I called, no one answered. When I spoke, they did not listen, but they did what was evil in my eyes, and chose that in which I did not delight. Hear the word of the Lord, you who tremble at his word. Your brothers who hate you and cast you out for my name's sake have said, let the Lord be glorified, that we may see your joy. But it is they who shall be put to shame. The sound of an uproar from the city, a sound from the temple, the sound of the Lord rendering recompense to his enemies. Before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came upon her, she delivered a son. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Shall a land be born in one day? Shall a nation be brought forth in one moment? For as soon as Zion was in labor, she brought forth her children. Shall I bring to the point of birth and not cause to bring forth, says the Lord? Shall I, who cause to bring forth, shut the womb, says your God? Rejoice with Jerusalem and be glad for her, all you who love her. Rejoice with her in joy, all you who mourn over her, that you may nurse and be satisfied from her consoling breast, that you may drink deeply with delight from her glorious abundance. For thus says the Lord, behold, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the glory of the nations like an overflowing stream. And you shall nurse, you shall be carried upon her hip, and bounced upon her knees. As one whom his mother comforts, so I will comfort you. You shall be comforted in Jerusalem. You shall see, and your heart shall rejoice. Your bones shall flourish like the grass, and the hand of the Lord shall be known to his servants, and he shall show his indignation against his enemies.
There's a lot of symbols here that we've gone through before, but if you look at Zechariah 14, you got the glory of the nations like an overflowing stream. So the waters from Jerusalem going out to the nations. You also have where is it? This picture of Aaron's bud again. So we've just gone through that Aaron's staff was put as a witness. It was made as a witness that his Aaron's staff budded. So therefore, he was in charge of the priesthood, right? They put all 12 and then he was in charge. And then you have that same picture, a similar picture with the parable of the figs, I believe it is. In Matthew 24. Let's go there. So he talks about the abomination. He talks about the false Christ. And he talks about the sign of him returning, and the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the earth, the powers of the heavens will be shaken, and there will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So he's talking about Isaiah 66. Learn from the fig tree, learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts out leaves, you will know that summer is near. So also, when you see these things, you know that he is near and at the very gates. Truly, I say to you, this generation will not pass until these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. So most people interpret this as we saw Israel be born as a nation, but some people think that that was a false sign that was orchestrated. I don't know. I just watch and see what happens. I always say, just watch and see what happens. So there's a lot of people that say it's false. It's a false regathering of Israel. I don't think so, because in the regathering of Israel, you have people coming from Russia, you have people coming from Ethiopia, you have busloads of people being regathered to the land as we speak. Okay. So I believe that if Abba has used Yah uses unscrupulous people and unscrupulous, wicked people to do his bidding. So it really doesn't matter how it came about, but we do have that picture since 1949 of Israel being regathered and of the nation being born. And so now you have the fig tree. It started to put out leaves, it started to put out branches, right? And then, for this generation, from that fig tree generation, they say that generation will not pass until these things take place. Well, we are at the end. So a generation scripturally is 85 years, I believe. So 2024 minus 19, was it 1949? So we're at 75 years. So was it 75, or I think some people said 75. Let's look it up. Generation according to the Bible. I think it's in Proverbs. I think they get it from Psalms somewhere. Let me just see if I can find it. Anybody know it? Yeah, Psalm says 80 years somewhere. This generation will not pass. Okay, 90:10. Psalms 90:10. As for the days of our years, in them are 70 years, and if men should be in strength, 80 years. So we're at 75 now. And the greater part of them would be labor and trouble. The greater part of them would be labor and trouble, for weakness overtakes us and shall be hastened. I'm gonna look at all of Psalm 90. So that's where they get it from, that we're now in the fig tree generation. And like I said, there's lots of theories out there. My stance is always just learn what the scriptures say and then wait and see and watch. Okay. A prayer of Moses, the man of God. Adonai, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. So who is the dwelling place? The hiding place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or you have ever formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are El. You return man to dust, and you say, return, O children of man, for 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as you watch in the night. So when we hear, I think it's James say, is it James or Peter? Say a day is like 1,000 years. There's also this reference here, for 1,000 years in your sight are but yesterday when it is past. You sweep them away with a flood, and they are like a dream. Like grass is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed, and in the evening it fades and withers. For we were brought to an end by your anger. By your wrath we are dismayed. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. For all our days pass away under your wrath, and we bring our years to an end like a sigh. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength 80, but their span is but toil and trouble, and they are gone, and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you? Teach us the number of our days, so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Return, O Yehovah. How long? Have pity on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad in our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, for as many years as we have seen evil. Let your work be shown. Let your work be shown to your servants. Let your glorious power and your glorious power to their children. Let the favor of Yehovah, our Elohim, be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yea, yes, establish the work of our hands. That goes back to the works thing. Let your work be shown to your servants. So looking for his work, and then establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. So you're looking to his works to establish the work of your hands. So you're saved by grace through faith, and then you watch his works, you learn his works. His works are in his word and all that he's doing, and then you use that to establish the work of your hands instead of establishing other works from other places. Okay, where were we? So yeah, generation, they say 70 to 80 because of this, and that gives us that fig tree picture. So we saw Israel be reborn in a day. We saw Israel be reborn in a day in 1949, and then all the ingathering started to happen, which is a picture of Isaiah 66, because in Isaiah 66 we had that picture, but there's still evil going on in the land of Israel. So I don't know how that's going to all go down. I don't pretend to know things that I don't actually know. I try not to anyways. Okay, back to Isaiah 66. So rejoice with Jerusalem. So she's having labor pains. I believe that we are in the labor pains. We are in the labor pains happening as these things are being brought forth. And labor can last quite a while. And as Yeshua said, first you're going to see the labor pains, and then you'll see the kingdom being born. So if we're in the labor pains now, we're watching the kingdom being born. A lot of people are getting freaked out, and they're like, oh, the enemy's doing this, the enemy's doing that. No, we're watching the kingdom be born. The evil people are going to get burnt in the fire. They're going to be separated and burnt in the fire, gathered like tares and burnt in the fire. And if you are righteous and not bowing to idols and not in compromise and seeking him with your whole heart, with Yeshua as your covering, you will walk through the fire and not get burnt. Right?
For behold, the Lord will come in fire, and his chariots like the whirlwind, to render his anger and fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire will the Lord enter into judgment, and by his sword with all flesh, and those slain by the Lord shall be many. Those who sanctify and purify themselves to go into the gardens, following one in the midst, eating pig's flesh and the abomination and mice, shall come to an end together, declares the Lord. For I know their works and their thoughts, and the time is coming to gather all nations and tongues. And they shall come and shall see my glory, and I will set a sign among them. And from them I will send survivors to the nations, to Tarshish, Pul, and Lud, who draw the bow, to Tubal and Javan, to the coastlands far away, that have not heard my fame or seen my glory. And they shall declare my glory among the nations, and they shall bring all your brothers from all the nations as an offering to the Lord, on horses and in chariots and in litters and on mules and on dromedaries, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, says the Lord, just as the Israelites bring their grain offering in a clean vessel to the house of the Lord. And some of them also I will take for priests and for Levites, says the Lord. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make shall remain before me, says the Lord, so shall your offspring and your name remain. From new moon to new moon, and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares the Lord. And they shall go out and look on the dead bodies of the men who have rebelled against me. For their worms shall not die, their fire shall not be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrence to all flesh.
So most people, commentators, scholars say that the worm that's not dying is the conscience, because you have no sacrifice for your guilt and your sin. That conscience stays in torment, and that you could feel the evil and the torment forever. That's what most of them say about that. Beyond that, I don't know. Again, I'm not going to pretend to know things. I don't know. And people that seem to have it all figured out, I generally don't trust them, because this is complicated stuff. All right. I just want to go back to the beginning of Isaiah 66, where it's talking about he who slaughters an ox is like one who kills a man, who sacrifices a lamb like one who breaks a dog's neck, who presents a grain offering is like one who offers pig's blood. He who makes a memorial offering of frankincense is like one who blesses an idol. It's that picture of choosing your own ways and then trying to do all these things and bring all these sacrifices in order to cleanse yourself, right? When he wants that obedience. You're delighting in your abominations. You're putting the holy water on your hand and marking yourself, but you're refusing to do anything he asked you to do. You're refusing to glorify his works. You're refusing to walk in righteousness. The other thing I wanted to take a look at is those who sanctify, and so verse 17, I think it's 67:17, Isaiah, those who sanctify and purify themselves go into the gardens, following one in the midst, eating pig's flesh, and the abomination and mice shall come to an end together, declares Jehovah. This goes back to everything that we were covering in all today. So those who are trying to purify themselves and trying to sanctify themselves, doing all of these different things, but their vessels are full of tainted meat. In Isaiah 65, it talks about tainted meat is in their vessels, tainted understanding. They've been eating tainted food. And that's a spiritual understanding. It's also a physical, because the physical always is connected to the spiritual. If you have no problem rebelling against Jehovah and not even taking into consideration what the rest of his word says, and you just want to find a reason to eat abominations, there's a heart problem there. So people always talk about, oh, well, it's not what goes in that makes you, defiles you, it's what that comes out. What is coming out of your heart when you refuse to listen to the warning in Revelation about food offered idols, in Acts about food offered idols, in Isaiah 66, which is about the day of the Lord's return, when it warns you about eating pig's flesh and abomination. In Isaiah 65, it talks about tainted meat in your vessels. What is in your heart when you refuse to hear that warning because you want to take one verse Paul said out of context and make it so that you can sin, so that you can just live however you want, instead of seeking Jehovah and the entirety of his word to figure out what he's actually talking about? I want to show you something, and this will hopefully connect who these abominable people are that are just twisting the gospel. I hope I can find it easy because I didn't save it yet.
Before I started work, I went over to Christ Cathedral. I sat.
Okay, here, I'll flip this for you guys so you can see it. I meant to say Isaiah 65. Okay, so you guys know who this guy is, okay? This guy is a Knights Templar. You know the great harlot that I told you about? The Masons, Rome, Islam. All the top dogs of these religions, Orthodox Judaism, they're all the great harlot. They're all running things, okay? So this guy has made a TV show that many people have watched, okay? First of all, I prayed the rosary. There's no command in scripture to pray any rosary. I just want to go back to...
Sat by his grave and I prayed a rosary with him. I sat down and before I started work, I went over to Christ Cathedral. I sat by his grave and I prayed a rosary with him. I sat down.
He's sitting by the grave of the man who the Jesus revolution is about. And that man led all these people to Jesus, but also continued in sin. And he ended up, I believe he died of AIDS or something like that, but he ended up continuing in his homosexual lifestyle after the Jesus revolution story. After that all took place, he continued in his homosexual lifestyle. So this man is now going to that man's grave, praying a rosary, and laying on his grave, okay?
And I prayed with him. The space just to his right is empty, so I got to sit down or lie. At one point, I even lied down because I just thought it would be kind of interesting to try to connect in some way. And I said, Lonnie, I want to honor you with this film. And so if this is a good idea that I do this film, have somebody give me a sign. Give me a sign, have God give me a sign. Mm-hmm. And the minute the words left my mouth, behind me there was a door open to the cathedral, and this giant cord rang out for about 5 seconds. So I heard that and I was like, okay, thanks for that.
There, they have the verse right there for you. Isaiah 8.
Before I started work,
okay, so should you not watch The Chosen? Because it's just infiltrated with witchcraft. Often I will get people and they will come to me and they're like, you need to watch this YouTube video, you need to watch this video or that video. I recently had somebody come to me saying that I need to watch some YouTube video that convinced them that Yeshua is not the Messiah. And I prayed about it. I said, Abba, do you want me to watch this video? And he was like, no. And then within days, he was showing me how they put witchcraft in the videos. And I've seen this before. If you look at certain Hollywood movies, you will see the different symbols and the witchcraft right in the movies. But he was saying that a lot of these movies and these things that people are watching, and some of them are religious, some of them are, theology and stuff like that. A lot of them they have the witchcraft crafted right into the movie. I was convicted to turn off The Chosen within season 1. I think it was within season 1. Abba was like, turn it off. Don't watch this. So don't try to convince me that these people are not messing in the spirit with things. Let's go to Isaiah 65 because I want to show you more of what he was talking about. So they put on the screen Isaiah 8. So Isaiah 8 talks about those who are praying to necromancers. They're doing all this stuff with the dead. I believe it was Hillsong Church or Bethel Church or one of those big mega churches. They were doing this thing called grave soaking, and they were laying on the grave. They're having the young children, basically the young teens, go to these different graves of different saints and lay on the graves and soak up and try to access the spiritual energy. Okay. Demons can do signs and wonders, you guys. Demons can make a cord ring out in a cathedral. Demons can make all sorts of signs and wonders happen easily. They can easily do it. They do it all the time, right? So if you're praying for a sign or wonder in that there, and you're praying out loud and you're not really being careful to seek the word and make sure everything is in line with the word, you could be getting false signs and wonders. A perverse generation seeks after a sign. The only sign I'll give them is a sign of Jonah. So what is part of the sign of Jonah? Part of the sign of Jonah is repentance, turning from sin into lawfulness, into following Yah, into entering his kingdom. Whenever I'm confused about whether I should be listening to somebody or whether I should be having somebody in my life, that is what I look for. I don't look for signs and wonders. I don't look for any kind of fancy whatever, because I know that demons can do that. What I look for is, does this person have a repentant heart? Do they seek fully after Yah? Do they seek to learn his commands and learn who he is and learn his works so that they can follow him and be part of the kingdom? That's what you want to look for. You don't want to look for signs and wonders. Abba can also do signs and wonders. He can also make things happen. Like I said, yesterday, I had this incredible day of all sorts of things happening, but there can also be false signs and wonders. So just be warned about that. And that with that man there is a really good example of that. Okay, I wanted to go to 1 Samuel something. I wanted to read 1 Samuel 14, I think. I knew how to spell Samuel. That would be helpful. Nope, 11. We're going to go back to 10 a little bit because I want you to get you the full picture of this. Yeah, we'll start at 1 Samuel 10:17. We're going to talk about before Saul goes to psychic. We're going to talk about when Saul became king. Okay. So Saul, these are all shadow pictures, but it's interesting to watch Saul become a king. If he's anointed king of Israel, he's anointed king of Israel. It doesn't matter that we know later on that he falls and he becomes unrighteous. He was anointed and even David respected that. He's like, touch not Yah's anointed. So when Saul was in that position for whatever reason, he was the anointed one. So David understood that he was not to touch Saul, even though Saul was continually trying to kill him. So first, but we're going to go into when Saul first became king. So 1 Samuel 10:17. Now Samuel called the people together to the Yehovah at Mizpah. So for those of you who don't know who Samuel is the high priest serving in the temple. So Samuel could have been enough. They didn't need a king. They were supposed to make Yehovah their king and just be obedient to Yehovah, and Samuel would have been enough. The priesthood would have been enough. So if you have any issues, you could just bring it to the priesthood. They didn't need a king, but they cried out, they wanted a king because they wanted somebody above that, right? And he said to the people of Israel, thus says Yehovah, the Elohim of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and I delivered you from the hand of the Egyptians and from the hand of all the kingdoms that were oppressing you. But today you have rejected your Elohim, who saves you from all your calamities and your distresses, and you have said to him, set a king over us. Now, therefore, present yourselves before Yehovah by your tribes and by your thousands. Then Samuel brought up all the tribes of Israel near, and the tribe of Benjamin was taken by lot. And he brought the tribe of Benjamin near to its clans, and the clan of the Madarites was taken by lot, and Saul the son of Kish was taken by lot. And when they sought him, he could not be found. So they inquired again of Yehovah, is there a man still to come? And Yehovah said, still, he has hidden himself among the baggage. They ran and took him from there, and when he stood among the people, he was taller than any of the people from his shoulders upwards. He's really tall. And Samuel said to all the people, do you see him whom Yehovah has chosen? There is none like him among the people. And all the people shouted, long live the king. And Samuel told the people the rights and duties of the kingship, and he wrote them in a book and laid it up before Yehovah. Then Samuel sent all the people away, each one to his home, and Saul also went to his home at Gibeah. And with him went men of valor whose hearts Yehovah had touched. So Yehovah has chosen Saul as king, and with Saul has gone men of valor whose the hearts Yah has touched to serve Saul the king. Okay? But some worthless fellows said, how can this man save us? And they despised him and brought him no present, but he held his peace. So there's some people that decided that they despised the king that Yehovah had chosen because the people had asked for king. And so there's also this picture here too. The people had asked for something, and Yehovah said, okay, you were supposed to just have me as king, but that's okay. I'll give you a king. You need to look upon the image of a king to understand. That's fine. I will give you a king. And so he anointed Saul. Then Nahash, the Amorite, went up and besieged Jabesh Gilead, and all the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, make a treaty with us, and we will serve you. But Nahash the Amorite said to them, on this condition I will make a treaty with you, that you gouge out all your right eyes, and thus bring disgrace on all Israel. The elders of Jabesh said to him, give us 7 days respite, that we may send messengers throughout the territory of Israel. Then if no one comes to save us, we will give ourselves up to you. And when the messengers came from Gibeah of Saul, they reported the matter to the ears of the people, and all the people wept out loud. So there's some that went up and they decided to make a treaty with the enemy. And when they made the treaty, because they didn't think that they would be saved, they didn't think that the king was going to save them. So because they didn't think the king was going to save them, they made a treaty with the enemy to serve the enemy. And it's interesting that it says 7 days. Give us 7 days. Because 7 is that number, like we have 7,000 years, 7 days in a week. It's a number of completion. On this condition, I will make the treaty with you, that you gouge out all your right eyes, and thus bring disgrace on Israel. hold that thought, keep that thought in your mind, okay? So then 11:5, verse 11:5. Now Saul was coming from the field behind the oxen, and Saul said, "What is wrong with the people that they are weeping?" So they told them the news of the men at Jabesh. And the spirit of Jehovah rushed upon Saul when he saw these words, and his anger was greatly kindled. He took a yoke of oxen and cut them in pieces and sent them throughout the territory of Israel by the hand of the messengers, saying, "Whoever does not come out after Saul and Samuel, so shall it be done to his oxen." And the dread of Jehovah fell upon the people, and they came out as one man. And when he mustered them at Bezek, the people of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah were 30,000. And they said to the messengers who came, "Thus shall you say to the men of Jabesh Gilead, tomorrow by the time that the sun is hot, you shall have salvation." When the messengers came and told the men of Jabesh, they were glad. Therefore, the men of Jabesh said, "Tomorrow we give ourselves up to you, that you may do whatever seems good to you." And the next day, Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came in the midst of the camp in the morning and watched and struck down the Amorites until heat of day. And those who just survived were scattered, and no 2 of them were left together. So these people had made a covenant with the enemy, because they did not trust that Saul and Samuel were going to come save them. And this is like that shadow picture going on, right? I want to show you. So have you ever heard of the One Eye Club? This is something that's just so bizarre to me that this is an actual thing and nobody thinks about it, right? So if you look at, there's so many examples of this, right? This is the ritual in which they join this little, they get their eye damaged, right? And then they're part of the little club. And so how is it that all these popes just happen to have accidents? All these popes, they're just so clumsy. They just have these accidents, and every one of them just seems to get a black eye. Isn't that odd? And isn't it odd that, this Orthodox person who tells you to pray to Mary also ended up getting an eye injury? Okay. And isn't it odd that all these celebrities, sometimes they often show up with black eyes as well. I'm sure you've all seen that. And politicians, it happens all the time as well. They're just so clumsy that they always get these black eyes. And if you're ever curious what that symbolizes, it's making a covenant with the enemy because you don't think you're going to get saved by the anointed of Jehovah, right? That's what this is. And there's so many examples of it. I don't necessarily believe in coincidences that happen this many times. Now, I was curious about some people that have come to fame recently, and I thought this was fascinating. So the one picture I found of Candace Owens. I couldn't find an example of her getting a black eye or anything like that. But I found this New Yorker, right? And it's literally the gospel of Candace Owens. Now, Candace Owens just got baptized into the Catholic Church as well. Okay, so put the pieces together and tell your friends. We all need to figure this out because this beast church, the beast church of Revelation, is growing. Yeah, I think that's all I had on them. I found the Pope one the most interesting because it's almost like, and don't quote me on this because I didn't necessarily check. It's almost like every single one of them ends up getting some sort of eye injury. It would be interesting to go through and check if you could possibly that it happened to all of them. Anyways, y'all know what's up. I don't need to tell you. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. Yeah, so this whole Catholic, the way that the Catholic thing is ramping up, it's the beast, and the Islam is ramping up. Catholicism, Islam, in within the masses is ramping up. That's your beast church, you guys. That's your beast church. I don't know how else to explain it. I think we've covered it well today. Let's read the Mark section because we have Mark in the gospel portion. So Mark 9:40 to 50, just a short. Such a weird section. I'm going to read more of it. Mark 9. So 40. Mark, okay, so Mark 9:38, John said to him, "Teacher, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he was not following us." But Yeshua said, "Do not stop him, for no one is able to do a mighty work in my name. Will who is able to do a mighty work in my name will soon be able to speak afterward to speak evil of me. For one who is not against us, us is for us. Truly I say to you, anyone who gives you a cup of water to drink because you belong to Christ will by no means lose his reward. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to if a great millstone were hung around his neck and he were to be thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off, for it is better for you to enter life crippled than with two hands and go to hell, to the unquenchable fire. Did you know unquenchable is asbestos in Greek? What? Unquenchable is asbestos in Greek. Wild. Does it burn forever? Okay, side quest here, guys. Side quest. Yeah, it can't burn forever because buildings that would burn. But the fibers go into the air. It's a mineral. Causes cancer. Very bad for you. I have my step grandpa, long story. My grandmother's second husband, after her first husband died, got cancer from working with so much asbestos in his life. Is asbestos flammable? What happens when asbestos is present in a burning building? How much do we need to worry about asbestos with these fires? Asbestos is not flammable. In fact, it is believed that the name asbestos comes from the Greek word meaning inextinguishable, because it was used to make wicks that would never burn up. Because asbestos is not flammable, it has been used in fireproofing and to provide fire retardant materials like in blankets. Huh. So it was used in wicks, so the fire would keep burning and the wick wouldn't get shorter. Fascinating. Good side quest, guys. Okay. If your foot causes you to sin, it is better for you to enter life lame than with 2 feet, to be thrown into Hades, hell, Gehenna. So Gehenna was, like I was telling you before, is that place outside of Jerusalem where the fires would be burning all the time with the garbage and the dead bodies, and it was just gross. And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out, for it is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye than with two eyes and be thrown into hell. That is interesting in light of what we just talked about. If your eye causes you to sin, tear it out, for it is better for you to enter the kingdom of Yah with one eye than with two eyes and be thrown into hell. That's so fascinating with what we just covered. Where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched, for everyone will be salted with fire. Salt is good, but if the salt has lost its saltiness, how will you make it salt again? Have salt in yourselves and be at peace with one another. We went through salt earlier. I have a few videos on my page where I went through just different various aspects of salt, and it's really interesting when you look at the compound and stuff. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to cover today. There's probably more, but we've done enough. I'm going to stop the recording and then we can chat. Again, if you want all of these recordings, they're on the discipleship training on my website. So just go to my link in bio and then go to discipleship training and join that. And everything that I've ever done is there, and it's like all labeled and pretty for you. So if you want all of those, go to the discipleship training. And if you ever want to support me and the work that I do, you could go to my website and there's just different ways to support me. You can buy worksheets. You can just support me however you want. It is really, really helpful to have support. It just helps my time and stuff. Jenny, look up Zechariah 11:17. Yes, ma'am. Ooh. Woe to my worthless shepherd who deserts the flock. May the sword strike his arm and his right eye. Let his arm be wholly withered and his right eye utterly blinded. That is interesting. So again, same picture. Right eye. Oh, when they do the anointing for the priesthood too, I believe that they do the ear, the right thumb, and the right toe. Yeah. Very, very interesting. So your right hand in scripture is what you use to do your work. Most people are right-handed, right? So it's that picture of what you use to do the works that you're going to do. So if you have set yourself apart to do the works of the Father, then you've anointed you're listening to him, you're doing your actions with your right hand, and then your right foot, you're walking in his path, right? So it makes sense. That's that picture. And then the right arm is also connected to the son. So in Hebrew understanding, if the father has a son, that son is considered his right arm, because when you get old and you can't work anymore, you can't do the works. Your son would do the works of your house. So your son would carry your works forth. That's that picture of the son carrying things forth. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now. Again, if you want the recordings, just go onto my website. And they can find them there in the discipleship training. And let me stop this now.